Hello and welcome to today's episode of Spec Steppin, where we are stepping alphabetically through the spec on the MDN spec documents. Today we're going to be covering CSS Custom Highlight API, and as you see on your screen, the documentation for this right on there. There's a couple things on the documentation I want to point out. First, let me move my mug out of the way. And the example I'm going to be using is actually right from this page because I thought it was a very good example. But I want to jump down to browser compatibility, just because even though this is not an experimental API, as others I've shown you have been, it's not supported by all browsers currently. And of the probably more popular browsers, the one that kind of jumps out is Firefox. As you can see, it's not in their general release. So if you use regular Firefox for your development, even though you have a current release, it's not currently supported. And I'll show you in my code where there's a fallback for that. But most other browsers, it is. And maybe you just would have a workaround in Firefox where you would have some more robust or verbose code to handle this kind of scenario. But let me scroll back up at the top. What is it? What is the Custom Highlight API? Basically, it allows you with much less code to be able to select and style and highlight is what they call it, but style the particular text on a screen. You see this a lot in like a search feature where you're searching through text to try to highlight certain words and things like that. You see that built within the browser itself, that sort of behavior. If I were to do a search on CSS, see how it highlights things right in the screen. So this same sort of functionality we can put within our applications using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So basically what you do is you grab a range of objects, and in that range of objects, you then basically go through that range of objects and what you're searching for, what you're trying to highlight, you pull that information out of there, and then you create a highlight within the API. They call it a highlight object. And in that highlight object, then you can apply CSS to it. So I'll let you read through this documentation, but let me jump to the code so you can see kind of how this works. So here, I just have regular code, nothing super fancy about it. I have a style sheet, and that style sheet has one single style rule in it, and it's just this pseudo class of highlight, and you pass to it the whatever you're trying to highlight. The basically the search, the highlight object is what they call it. So I'm passing through search results, and then whatever color, whatever styles you want to apply to it. I'm just using what they used on MDN because again, I thought it was a good example of the background color and color, but you can put any style you want on it. And then the real, well, within the HTML, I have this input. This is my search input. Okay. And then I have just some text I'm searching for. So then the real magic happens within the JavaScript file. So let me go up the top here. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm grabbing the query. So get element by ID, or I could have used query selector. I'm grabbing this input text right there and storing it in my query variable. And article, I'm grabbing my entire article text all right there so I can use it and search through it. So I'm grabbing the input in the query and the article text there. Then you basically find all the text nodes in article and then search within those nodes. So they call it's commonly called a tree walker. So I have a tree walker, and in my document, I create a tree walker, and it's called a tree walker because the DOM hierarchy is basically a tree, right? So you have parents and children and siblings and stuff, but it looks like a tree. So we're traversing the DOM using this tree walker creation. So basically, in this variable tree walker, go into my document, I'm creating a tree walker out of my article, so my article tag, and then I'm filtering it to show the text. So I can search through the text. Basically, I want to search through this text and this text and this text and so on. So then I have a empty array for all text nodes, and then current node basically says go into the tree walker and get the next node that's available. So then I'm looping over the current node. And then so here, all current nodes, I push through the current node, and then I go get the next node. So up here on line 8, The next node is the first node that it's going to get. So basically, this right here, this paragraph. And then I loop over that current node as long as there is something in it using the while, and I'm pushing the current node to all text nodes. So I'm creating an array out of these three paragraphs is basically what's happening. So I'm looping over, just creating an array out of there. Then here I'm adding an event listener on the input, on my input. So anytime I'm doing input, I have this code that runs as I type. So now I have this little fallback safety thing here because I mentioned earlier about how it's not supported in Firefox as of the recording this video. So if CSS highlights doesn't exist, see I have the bang there. If it doesn't exist, then change the article text content to CSS Custom Highlighting API not supported and just stop the return right there so it doesn't go on. So it just removes those three paragraphs and puts this text right in there. Otherwise, it's going to go on. And I'm clearing out my highlights just in case I'm doing this several times. I want to make sure I clear the highlight object. Okay. And then my search string, I'm taking whatever my search string is, and I'm saying go into my query value, that input right here, go into value, trim it so I don't have any white space on either side, and set it to lowercase so I can compare lower, higher, that sort of thing. Then, excuse me, if there's no search string, just return. So if it's empty, just stop running. So that's it happens if I like delete it out, that sort of thing. Then I'm creating my ranges of search. So go into my alt text nodes, which I created up here. So alt text nodes contains an array of all of these right here. So I didn't mean to move that. Contains an array there of that content. So say take all text nodes and I'm mapping each element and I'm returning the element and I'm returning the text of that element. So, and I'm using the same sort of thing to lowercase. So that way I don't have to worry about uppercase, lowercase like here. This has an upper M on it. I don't have to worry about that uppercase M. So go into it, return it. But then I'm also mapping out the text and the element. I'm creating an empty array of indexes and I'm starting at 0, which is going to be the starting spot. All arrays are 0 base. So I'm starting at 0. And as long as the starting position is less than the text length, then while it's that, it'll keep searching. So as I type out, if my text length is less than starting position, it won't work. So in my index, I'm going into text, finding index of my search, and I'm starting up 0. So I'm basically starting at the left of a word and going and searching for that text as I'm going through to the right. So I'm finding it. If it doesn't find it, that index of returns a -1. So if it doesn't exist, it's going to break out of there. Otherwise, if it finds it, push that item to my indices array. And then my starting position will be index that I found up here plus the string dot length. Okay, so my index that's returned here. So let's say, for example, I have the word text, and I'm searching on the word text. Let's make it more interesting. Let's say I'm searching on the word bacon. So I'm trying to find the word bacon in my text. Everyone wants bacon. So I type in B. Okay, so B, the text length is 5, BACON. And so starting position 0 to begin with, it's less than the length. The index is the text index of the string B I typed in, and it'll start the starting position of 0. And because we're taking the letters BACON and turning it into and searching that string, the index of search starts at 0, just like arrays start at 0. So B is in the 0 position. No, it won't return -1 because B exists. If I search for X, it'll return -1 and stop. Otherwise, it's going to say, okay, push to my indexes array, the index, whatever it found in the starting position of 0. And it found my B. Okay. So it pushed the B to up here to this array, the very first part of the array. So now my starting position, because I found one letter, my letter B, my index is going to be the index of the 0 plus the string length, which is 1. Okay. Then I type in the A. Okay. And the A, again, as it changes the starting position, 0, 1. So 1 is less than the text length of 5. So my index is going to be starting position of 1 here. My string, BA, it's going to find it, and then it's going to push it to here. So it's basically going to go letter by letter and find it. Okay. That may be confusing for you if you're new to this type of searching, indexing of manipulation of strings. I would encourage you to do some console logging perhaps in there so you can see how that works and how it goes through and finds the strings and what how index of works and all that. There is, if you have never used index of and you're curious about it, there is documentation on the MDN site that's excellent, so you can find it. So then it's going to search through all that, those letters, and it's going to return that indices array. And I'm mapping, and I'm just doing the regular index 0, 1, 2, so on and so forth. I'm creating a range, okay? And then I'm setting the start of the element at the index starts with 0, and I'm setting the end of that index plus the string length. So if it's 5, the index 0 plus so if the index is 1 plus 5 would be 6. So, and then I'm returning that range. Okay. And I've got a console log here so you can kind of see that, but I'm going to take that out for right now. I would encourage you, if you're looking at that, when I first was learning about how this range works, I put that console log in there so I could understand it and so I could search it. So then I'm creating this search results highlight, which this is part of the API. I'm creating a highlight object and I'm spreading my ranges that I'm doing into there. So it's returning the range. So again, ranges is up here. So as I'm typing, what it's doing is it's returning a range of index and everything and storing it in ranges. And so here I'm just spreading that out, BACON, for if I'm searching for bacon. And I'm just flattening it into a single object here. Again, if you're curious about how flat works, look at the MDN documentation on flat for to see how arrays and how you can flatten a spread, that sort of thing. Then I'm saying go into my CSS highlights and set search results, okay, and to this search results highlight. So it's passing this range here to it, BACON, whatever you're searching for. And this search results comes from this right here, this highlight, okay? So I'm basically setting a item within the CSS as search results, and that gets this type of styling. And I'm passing to it what I'm searching here by what I'm typing in my input. So how does this work? So how does it come all together? So let's take a look. Let's go here. I've got an example here. And so let me search on, I'll search on this one, ISTE. Now, remember, it's going to search on the first letter I type in. It's going to loop through all of these items and basically this code. So I'm going to search on ISTE, that 4-letter word. So when I tap the I, because I have while input, it's going to go through all this code and it's going to go through that the ranges, find everything that has an I in it, return it, and put this highlight class on it. So if I do, let me put my cursor in there and type I. So it looped through all of it and returned those ranges and put that search results highlight pseudo class on it. So IT. So now I have less of them, but it went through and found everything with IT. Okay. Actually, it needs to be ISTE. So there's IS. And then if I do IST, I found IST and I'll go ahead and put the E in. There's my highlight. So it's a similar type of functionality that you can put in to try to maybe find something if you're working on an application that has a lot of text. You want a search feature that highlights certain of that text, that sort of thing. Basically, this custom highlight API is a pretty cool way to do it. There's other pseudo elements and things, as you can see from the content here, but you basically use this highlight to do whatever sort of styling you want to do with it. So take a look at the documentation here. It's very good documentation. Like I said, this sample that I have here in the code is basically what is from the documentation because it's pretty good sample the way they wrote their code. So if you have any questions, let me know. And if not, happy stepping.